Alrighty, we're back. Your favorite podcast show of the week. It is Location Weekly. It's episode number 539, recording live on October the 18th. Brianna, how's it going?
It's going good. Had a nice family relaxing weekend. And obviously, as we were just discussing, my Braves are playing pretty well so far. So no complaints here. How's it going with you?
We don't have baseball to watch here in Toronto. We're it's on to hockey season, so the Leafs are in action and they're doing okay so far. So that's kind of what we're hanging our hats on is basketball and hockey right now. But yeah, otherwise hanging in there. So
Good.
yeah. Alrighty, we have a good show for you. Four stories as usual that we wanted to walk you through, and I'll let Brianna start us off.
All right. So let's talk about Old Spice. Some really great advertising campaigns that many of us, probably all of us, have seen on their, advertising on TV. Always very memorable, spokespeople and characters they come up with. But they are going now into Walmart with Snapchat. So they're using Snapchat codes to give shoppers this augmented reality experience within the store aisles. So they have an in-cap display that is there, and it has, different body spray, lotion, the body wash, all of those different things. And then they have a tagline, which is "Smell ready for anything," and it has a Snapchat code. What I thought was interesting is that, Path to Purchase is the site that I got some of this information from, and their instituted editor visited one of these locations and said that the code was actually placed in a position where it was behind all the products, so nobody could actually see the Snapchat code or the experience, which is kind of comical. But what can happen if shoppers choose to engage in the aisle within, a code? They can actually have this experience. It unlocks this AR experience based upon Old Spice's different collections. There's 4 or 5 of them there, and there's corresponding settings like the beach or a field of flowers. And you can also encounter their spokesperson Isaiah Mustafa. This has also been appearing across other retailers as well. And Old Spice had collaborated with Walmart last holiday season to give this exclusive launch for some of their other, I guess, short-term scents that they were launching, and they had SKUs within the collection name that had the on-pack Snapchat codes that they could use. So, from my personal point of view on this, which, I don't usually hold back too much, but I think this is kind of dumb, honestly. I don't know that anybody's going to be super excited about having an AR experience while they're shopping in the middle of the Walmart aisles. I mean, going to Walmart is an experience on its own. You don't really need to have anything to augment that. And I think it's also a waste of technical resources. The creation of these experiences, I think, would be much better served in just a Snapchat filter or an AR experience that you could have right there. To everyone, not necessarily somebody in the aisle who actually takes the time to see the tagline and the snap code on your end cap. Also, I think that there's a lot of other opportunities right now, like you've got Halloween, right? Perhaps people are feeling more comfortable with, how things are going to go out to a costume party or dress up. Why didn't they do something around that, right? I think there was a lot of opportunity for better experiences, and even just focusing through Snap and not bringing it into the retailers specifically. So to me, this is kind of a loss. The on-pack Snap codes is even a better application than in the store. I'm not sure how many people are taking it home and actually deciding they're going to have this AR experience with their body wash, but it's I guess I applaud that they're trying to be creative, but to me, it's a bit of a miss. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think I like that they're trying to do something and there's some creativity here and that they're teaming up with Snapchat and they're trying to do something in store. But I think at the end of the day, like we're still a little bit kind of in that, phase where, most people, at least people I know, if I'm going into the pharmacy or, the Walmart or the whatever, to buy deodorant or whatever it is I'm doing. I'm there just to grab the thing off the shelf and get out as quickly as I can, right? Like, just pick up the items I need and I'm out. Like, I'm not there to have an augmented reality experience, around my deodorant. Like, that's just not, what I'm thinking about. And I don't think that there's anything that you're going to do to make that something that I'm going to take extra time when we're in a time starved, sort of world as it is to go and do that. Like, that just doesn't seem to make sense to me. So, I like that they're trying something. I like that they're working with Snap, on this and, playing with these codes and trying to create something experiential, but I don't think experiential in this category is the right fit for this. If this was, hey, I'm walking into, a Gucci store, where I'm actually going to spend some time or browse or whatever the case might be, some kind of luxury goods or, something, I'm shopping for a car or whatever it is I'm doing, those types of experiences make more sense, right? And I think you can do these kinds of things more in an offline e-com social world and have impact, like, using something like Snap that you don't necessarily aren't going to have in the store. So as much as I love, creating location based experiences, I don't think this is a good one. So I'm with you on that.
Yep.
All right. So that's our first story. Moving on to our second story. So right here at home for me in Toronto, just this past weekend, it was on the 16th and 17th of October, was a little fun experience. I didn't have a chance to go down and participate in it, but it was called Toronto Art Heist. And so essentially, somebody came up with this great idea of, how can we get people out into the physical world and exposing, art and history and kind of making all these things come together. And so they created this like sort of real world scavenger hunt around art pieces. And so there's 16 art pieces over 2 days spanning a 10-kilometer area. And essentially, like, you go around, there's an app that you use to do this called Scavify. And, you're kind of going around and you're kind of finding these different hidden pieces of art. And there are different challenges and skill testing questions about the art that you're seeing along the way. You use geolocation to check in at each piece, and then it unlocks, like, these new experiences as you're there. But the goal is to get through the whole experience and see all the different pieces. In total, there's 48 challenges that you complete along the way. And the idea is to let people experience and be aware of just art that's just out there in our community, already. Like, not like this is some installed art exhibit. This is stuff that's just there all the time that people might not be aware of, that might just be passing by. Or some historical site that might be, have something of interest to tell us about the past or whatever the case might be. So I think it's pretty cool, that somebody's put a lot of effort into this, created this experience, set it up on a certain, weekend, and, done some promotion around this to get people out and moving and experiencing their city in a new way. So I love it. I think, if you're in tourism or anything like that, these are the kinds of things that you need to be thinking about to kind of get people moving again and experiencing cities and communities again. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I like this. I like this story a lot. I think it sounds like a really fun date night, actually. Something just to go and experience, and something that you kind of get to decide on how you approach it on your terms. But I like the idea that there are certain like quests and things that you can unlock and go through it that way. So I think that part sounds really, really interesting. And it's funny because this weekend was actually our art festival here in the area of New York where I am. And I did not attend, sadly, but at this phase in my life, like kids sports and family stuff seemed to take over. But I think it would have been amazing if there was this type of an accompaniment with that festival, right? So you're experiencing all the different art pieces, local artists, and, kind of moving through a city, like you said, but also just experiencing your own community. I think these are the types of experiences and scavenger hunts that make things fun. And there's not, it's kind of a one and done where you can kind of create different different, like you said, different scavenger hunts, but they don't necessarily need to be redone and recreated every week or every month or with every new scent, in essence, right? You kind of can just have something that's there, and people can take their time to enjoy it. So I like that idea. I think it brings a lot of value to people who maybe don't understand the art or not, very well versed in various types of art, to kind of get that understanding, as well as just have a fun time and unique experience seeing it. So I like that story a lot.
Very good.
All right, so on to something kind of simple, which is QR codes and using them for payments. We actually sort of have a first here that United Airlines is going to be using PayPal QR codes for in-flight payments, part of their contactless payment effort. And they are the first airline to do this. And they are rolling this out. I think it's starting this month or starting next month in November. So it'll be available on some flights, probably outbound from Chicago O'Hare. And you can use it's a PayPal QR code to buy snacks and other items. And supposedly it will not have the need to have Wi-Fi available or enabled, which I think is obviously the most important piece of this. How that works, I don't know. Interesting to find that out. But they can be used on these select flights, and they want to extend this to flights across the entire network. Over a certain period of time by the end of the year, they're saying. And I like this. I think this is pretty simple, but what I really don't enjoy is the experience of wanting to have a glass of wine on a flight or buy a snack on a flight, and they don't accept cash, right? You have to pay with a credit card. So it's a very manual process a lot of times, like where you've got to actually physically hand over a credit card. They have to swipe it, and then they come back. And then if you need a receipt, you need to input your information. It is definitely far from contactless. And it just takes away, I think, from the flight experience, as well as the amount of effort that all of the attendants who are working these flights, it's already complicated enough. And now they've got to take payments. Either make the stuff free or figure out a better and more seamless way to allow consumers to pay for it while they're on the flights. So I think this is a step in the right direction. I would love to know the ins and outs of, like, do I have to prepare or prepay or choose my food or items before I get on the flight because there is no Wi-Fi? I'm not sure. But I do think that this is certainly a better experience than what I just described. So I like the idea of storing this payment information in a digital wallet, being able to apply it later, but I want to see airlines do more and do better. And it should be really, really simple, even just like ordering from, their app or something like that. It should be super seamless. So it's good that they're taking a small step in the right direction. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, QR codes are everywhere now, right? Like, for menus to COVID stuff to payments to whatever. I mean, everybody's using them in some form or fashion, right? And I think for what I like about this story is the fact that they're looking at technologies, to solve a problem in a post-COVID world where people are concerned about germs and touching things and paying with cards and swiping things and all the things that we normally would do on a plane, right? So I like that they're kind of utilizing the technology to kind of facilitate that part of a transaction. So how that manifests specifically, is it integrated into the United app ultimately in some way? Seems like the logical thing to do. Can you use points from your loyalty program to subsidize or pay for those items, still using the QR code to drive the transaction. I have lots of questions about ways to make this more convenient and seamless for the user. To your point, like, is it, do you get on and these there's a certain amount of prepaid, you get a drink and you get a snack and you get a something, I don't know how that all works. That seems to make sense to me, like, especially when you're trying to, I know these guys are like, have lost a ton of money as an industry, but I think, when you're trying to recover an industry, you need to actually be almost going the other way right now, which is how are we going to bring people back, right? And so I think if, as somebody like yourself who pre-COVID, we were traveling every week, every other week, whatever. I look at those kinds of things and say, okay, what's it going to, what are some of the things that make it attractive to start to ramp up again and get back out there and do those things again, right? And so, I'd be looking at some of that. And so, do we apply these kinds of QR code technologies in a way that, is there some sort of menu that's brought up on the TV screen, or something like that, that each item has a QR code beside it or something? How does that work, right? Like, and how do we actually drive, selection and choice and transaction? So I have more questions than I have answers, but I like that they're trying to do something that at least takes away that, sort of touch piece of it. All right.
For sure.
On to our final story. So we'll jump over to Korea now, where there's a mall called Starfield Hanam. And they, as a lot of these malls over in the Asia Pacific region do, they're heavily invested in, digital signage and screens throughout these environments that are kind of just part of the mall and the fabric of the makeup of these malls. So they have a 22-meter tall LED video tower in the central atrium of the mall. And they built this sort of running art piece that is kind of targeted at, sort of environmental consciousness and awareness around conserving energy and so on. And so one of the things that's kind of cool about it is it's not just an art installation that you can walk by and look at. It's actually interactive in that you can use your mobile device to connect with the content on the screen and essentially control the light switch, they call it. So you have the ability to switch off the power on the content that's on the screen. Not actually switching the screen off, of course, but you're switching off, what is appearing on the screen into something else. And the idea of it is that it's sort of showing you this image of a resurrection of Earth being displayed. And that something as trivial or as simple as turning off a light can save our planet. And that's kind of the message that they're going for. So you have the ability to turn off the lights and you can see the Earth get reborn in this sort of, imagery that's displayed, right? So I think it's kind of cool. It's kind of creative. I like that there's an interactivity piece that people can play with it. I could see, like, especially if I had little kids, well, even my kids now would probably do it. But, I could see little kids, you go to the mall and, they want to play with that thing and see them having an impact on what's on that screen. But the messaging behind it, I think, is strong. It's cool. What are your thoughts?
No, I agree. I think you kind of touched on all the sentiments. It's like, I think the setting here in the middle of a mall versus in the middle of an aisle in a busy store is a very different experience, right? People tend to go to the mall for exploration and discovery, and they're kind of walking around. And a lot of times it's a hangout place, right? For younger people. At least it used to be. I don't know if it still is, especially maybe in Korea. But my guess is yes. And so I think that it does have, like, obviously it has the meaningful purpose behind it, but it also is in a place where people are more willing to interact with something like that. So I think that makes sense versus being in the middle of a situation where people are really just trying to get in and out. So I think the story is good. It is, again, one of those things that you're hopeful that the impact from it is taken, because obviously that's a lot of installation and moving parts that had to come together to create this experience. But overall, yeah, these are the types of interactive experiences that make much more sense than what we talked about, where we started the show. So closing it on a better note for sure.
Yeah, which is always the best way to end, right? On a positive note. So, and these are issues that are really important, right? Like, we all need to be concerned about, not just what we're doing today, but, the future, for our kids and our planet and these kinds of things. So I'm glad, to see, I'm always happy when I see examples like that. So, all right, well, that's our show for this week, episode number 539 in the books. Thank you for listening and watching. We appreciate your time. Please reach out to us if you have story ideas or feedback. Give us some love on whatever platform you consume this or social media. And we'll see you next week with another show. Have a great week, everybody. Talk to you soon. Bye.